G'day, I'm Peter Anthony. Welcome to Growth Tales. Michelle DeFilippo is an independent publishing expert, or a self-publishing expert, if you like. Expect to learn what you can do if you think you've got a book inside you, and the 6 stages you should consider if you'd like to self-publish your book. Here's Michelle's story. G'day, Michelle. You're an expert in self-publishing or independent publishing. I'm just curious, do you think everyone's got a book in them?
Probably, at least an awful lot of people do. The last statistic I heard was that 2.1 million books were published. I think it was in 2021. So quite a few people are writing.
2.1 million.
Yeah.
Wow. And your specialty is more in business books than in like novels, is that right?
No, we do all kinds of books, everything from textbooks to memoirs, novels, business books, you name it.
Okay. Because I'm thinking like more, I guess, from the business perspective. Like first, if I'm a business owner or an entrepreneur or someone that's in a leading role in an organization, what do you think the benefits are of having a published book from your perspective?
Oh gosh, well, so many people are doing just that, and it's a good way to tell your customers about your business, especially if you're a consultant or a speaker or even a small business. It's a great way to tell them more about you than you can list on a website, because if you look at the statistics, you know that people don't stay very long on your website, maybe a minute or two, if you're lucky. But if you want to offer a book for either for sale or even for a direct giveaway, that's your opportunity to put in tangible form as a PDF, let's say, all of the questions that you would normally be asked by customers, all of the information you want to convey. And then that puts people at ease. It helps them to learn more about you and to learn whether or not they want to reach out to you, because nobody likes to be sold, right? They don't.
That's true.
Especially the way it's done today. So it's just information.
It's just information. It's interesting too. I published a book. I didn't get the advice of an expert like you, which I wish I would have, like 7 or 8 years ago when I published my book. But what I find, it's like a big business card. When I'm meeting a new client, I bring the book along, I give them a copy, and it's like a big business card. And I know they won't read it. They'll flick through it, but it adds some substance. You think, well, this person's a consultant, they run a podcast, they've published a book. It's one of those really important pieces that if you've made the effort to do it, it may set you apart from competitors. Is that how you see it?
I would say, yeah, it's true. It's like a college diploma. It proves that you were able to put in 4 years worth of effort. So a book is kind of the same thing. You cared enough to put all of this down.
You did. And many of the challenges I found when I published my book, I think, are the sorts of things that you would crack. What do you see the biggest challenges for people? Like, I'm thinking mainly from a business perspective here, in like writing and self-publishing a book, in your experience.
Well, right now, I think the biggest challenge that faces business people or anyone who wants to publish a book is there's so much information online. If you go searching for information, chances are you're going to find the wrong answers, not the best answers, that from your perspective as an author. There's, of course, as in any business, there's every level of expertise available to you. But the biggest misconception right now in the publishing industry is that a publisher is necessary. Independent publishing originally meant and still means that you yourself are the publisher of your book, and it's not necessary to hire a publishing company. That's been forgotten in the last 20 years or so. So authors still need services, editorial and design services, but they don't need anybody to, quote unquote, publish the book for them. And a lot of mischief is going on in the industry today. With
what sort of mischief is going on in the industry?
Well, I think authors don't they go out looking for a publisher because they think they need one. But what they don't understand is that the publisher will take a significant amount of money out of their pocket when the book is sold. Now, in traditional publishing, that was normal because the traditional publishers paid to produce the book. They paid for the editors and designers and so forth. And so when a book was sold, they recouped their investment by keeping most of the money from book sales and paying the author a quote unquote royalty. So these newfangled publishers, what they do is they charge the author to produce the book, and then they also keep most of the money from book sales and pay the author a royalty. So that's not very advantageous to the author.
Yeah. And if I'm a regular business person or a regular entrepreneur, it might be challenging to find a publisher that is going to take on my project, unless I'm someone famous like a Richard Branson or an Elon Musk or someone like that. But a regular Peter Anthony going to a publisher, they'll be thinking, well, we're not going to publish your book because you're not well known enough to be bought from our authors. So that leaves it up to you to do it, the individual. But there's so many things that, like, I didn't know when I decided to publish a book, and I didn't even know what I didn't know. I was literally very ignorant of the whole process. Even writing it was challenging because it's interesting if you're a subject matter expert, and for me, it was about collaboration, and I consult and teach and coach on collaboration. I think there's magic in collaboration, so I called my book Collaboradabra, The Magic of Collaborative Conversations. And my book was a book of a workshop I'd run for 10 years. So I should have known what I was doing. It was like if you don't get a chance to attend the workshop, you can virtually attend the workshop by reading the book, and it took you through the same exercise. I thought, this is going to be easy, right? And I was traveling around the world, like running these workshops and writing my book as I went. But I found it was incredibly difficult to have the discipline to write it like as a book, and I didn't know how to find an editor. I didn't know what editing involved, and that whole publishing piece was like stumbling from one big hole into the next big hole. What sort of services do you provide? Like if I'd met you back then, if I'd met you say 8 years ago, what would you say to me then, Michelle?
Well, I would have explained to you that independent publishing means you are the publisher and you don't need a publisher. You do need services. But most people, I mean, think about what you're trying to do. You're stepping into an industry. You're an expert in what you do, but you're stepping into a completely new industry, knowing very little. And why would you know anything about it? It's not your field. So what we do, we're publishing project managers. Might be the best way to describe it. I've got the team and we have the experience. And what we do is we walk authors through the publishing process step by step with whatever services they need. And then we help them publish the book in their own name so that they're not sharing their revenues with anybody else when the book is sold.
Okay. And what are those steps, Michelle? Like if you'd met me and I'd said, look, I'd like to write this book. What are those main steps that you would project manage me through as a potential author?
Well, if you have a completed manuscript, however rough it may be, the next step is usually, for us, is an editorial evaluation, where the editor looks over what you've done and kind of gets a sense of how much editing may be necessary. Now,
is that where it starts, Michelle? Would it start with a manuscript? So people should approach you once they've written something? Is that how it works?
Yes. Sometimes people need help writing the book, and if that's the case, I can refer them to writing coaches or ghostwriters. But it really, from our perspective, it's you can fix almost any book as long as the author has at least made a start at putting it down. You can rearrange anything. You can fix the language. That's not really hard to do. So that first evaluation kind of gives everyone an idea of how much work the manuscript needs.
Okay, okay. And I guess there's different when we talk about books. There's different ideas of books. There's like a full book, which is what, about 40,000 words? Is that about right?
I would say 50 to 70,000
50
words.
to 70 is like a full book.
Yeah.
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 So that's a lot of writing, isn't it? That's a lot of content.
Yes.
Yeah. I think mine's 45,000. It's interesting. But when I first sent the manuscript to the editor, I found my editor through one of those online services. I think it was Canva or one of those, Upwork, one of those. And she was in the UK, and I sent her the manuscript, and I was expecting to get this glowing email saying, "Oh, Peter, this is so wonderful." But I got the complete opposite. She was quite harsh, which is exactly what I needed. And one of the things she was harsh on was she said, "Peter, you've got to be careful of very." And I said, "How many varies did I have?" And she said, "You had 47 varies." It was like 45,000 words. I said, "How many varies can I have?" And she said, "None, no varies." It's not very hot. It's scorching. Like she was very, I'm using that word very. It was very like harsh on the grammar, on how it was written, which was great. I mean, she cleaned it up because most of what I'd written, I was writing because I was traveling a lot. Then I was writing it in like airport lounges and hotel rooms, and it wasn't like sitting down in a writer's studio doing it that way. So step number one is get it written. Just write it down. Just get it written.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Don't struggle. Make it the best you can, and then hand
Yeah.
it off to
Yeah.
someone
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, and then get an editor. So that's step number one.
Yes.
Get it edited, to get the copy edited.
Hmm.
But I guess even before then, the step would be, what type of book am I writing? Am I writing a 50,000 word business book? Am I writing an ebook? Am I writing a PDF? What am I actually writing here? Like, what's the end product? Because you deal with all of them, correct? Is that right?
Yeah, ebooks and PDFs are just formats of the book. The actual book is the manuscript that you've written, and it can be released in any format.
Okay. So step one is the editing. What's the next step then?
So the next step in our workflow, we'll start the cover design and the editing at the same time to save time.
Okay. Okay.
So while the editor's working, we'll be working with you on the cover design and showing you concepts based on the type of book that you've written. And we start that by researching the bestsellers on Amazon, because we want your book to look as credible as a bestseller, and also to be designed in a contemporary way so that it looks like it belongs with the bestsellers when it's viewed online.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I get and typically how many copy edits would I be working through if I'm the author? Would it just be 2 or 3 edits? Copy edits?
Usually one pass is good enough. Sometimes, depending on what the editor finds, sometimes the editor will say, "You didn't explain yourself clearly here," or I think you need to expand on this a little bit. So if you start writing new text, then another pass would be necessary so the editor can review the new material. But most of the time, one or two passes is sufficient.
Okay. So I've got my cover design. I've got my copy edited to a degree that it is going to work or is readable or digestible. What happens next?
Okay, the next step is also a highly misunderstood thing right now. You'll hear online that you should have your book formatted. That's the new word, but that's not how a good book is created. The next step, if we were all working at a major publisher, the next step would be to hire an interior book designer to design the pages and actually come up with what the interior of the book is supposed to look like. It's a very detailed process. And then
it is.
Yeah.
I noticed that too. Because I'm thinking, this is just going to be like a PDF, right? But it's not. It's they pick like fonts, for example. They'll pick if you've got illustrations, how the illustrations appear, how how the paragraphs are formatted. It's quite specific, isn't it?
It is.
Which is something regular people don't understand.
And what the formatting of the text is actually called typesetting. That's the old-fashioned word for it. But
Yeah.
it's not just picking a font and setting the margins. It's working every line, every paragraph, every page, so that your book looks like a book and not just like a Word file. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And the fonts that were chosen for me didn't really exist anywhere else. They were very specific, and it wasn't like in Word or PDF. It was in a very, I don't know what it was. I guess that's what it is. It's being typeset. So every page looks great.
Yeah. There's all
It
kinds
looks
of
different than a Word document.
there's all kinds of rules in book design. In other words, the text on the page has to start and end at the same spot. When the book is open, they need to end at the same spot. And you can't have the end of a paragraph with one short word. You can't have too many hyphens. You can't have the first line of a paragraph at the bottom of a page, or the last line of a paragraph at the top of a page. There's all sorts of things to attend to, and sometimes the language doesn't cooperate. So you can spend a significant amount of time trying to make all those rules work together.
Yes, there's all those rules behind how it looks when you're reading the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason for it is reading comprehension, right? We don't want to distract the reader with poor spacing or things that make them stop even for a millisecond.
Yeah.
We want them to be able to focus on what you're saying.
Yes. And I made the mistake, or whether it was a mistake or not, when I assembled my book, I had text, I had diagrams that people were using to understand it. I had illustrations for each chapter idea, plus I had quotes, right, throughout the book. So there was a lot to manage to make it look like a book, which is something that a person could not do, like an individual could not do, if you to assemble those pieces. Well, they need expert advice, like from you.
We're all experts in different things, right? That's why we all have jobs. So that's good.
That's right. That's right. So I've got a typeset. Okay, what's that step number? So I've done the editing for the text. I've done the cover. I've done the typesetting. That's step, say, 3. What comes next?
Okay, in our shop, the next step for us is a thorough proofreading. We send the formatted pages to a proofreader, and they're looking not only for the mistakes that everyone that might have missed along the way, but they're looking for typesetting quality and adherence to the book page design rules and so forth. Okay. So that's the final look before the book is going to be uploaded to the printer. So that's really important.
Okay, and that's a human being?
Yes, absolutely.
It's not like so none of you are robots or AI bots or?
No. I hope I don't learn otherwise, but as far as I'm concerned, human beings will always do a better job than robots.
I think so, particularly in this space. So it gets proofread, and then it gets printed. Yeah,
right.
So it gets
yes.
Yeah.
Then we'll put the cover and the interior together. We'll build the digital files that the printer needs, which is also very technical, and upload the files to the printer. And then you'll be able to request a printed proof delivered to you so that you can hold the book in your hands and make sure everything is correct before distribution is activated. And we'll walk you through all of the distribution options, pricing, keywords, the description that's going to appear on Amazon and so forth.
Yeah. Okay. And what do you recommend publishing wise? What have you found? Because we're talking now about like printed books, not like ebooks or audio books. So what's the best place you found to publish books?
Well, that really changes all the time. What you should do is look at similar books to yours on Amazon, at similar page counts. You don't want to be too expensive. You don't want to be too cheap. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Amazon's the best place to publish?
Yeah, we actually recommend 2 print-on-demand platforms, KDP.com, which is owned by Amazon, and IngramSpark.com.
Yep.
Yeah, by using...
I use both.
Yeah,
I use both.
That's good. By using both of these platforms together, you get the widest distribution at the lowest cost.
Yes, and I think Ingram Spark has better margins for the author than Amazon. Is that true?
Well, the strength of Ingram Spark is that they feed physical bookstores and libraries and what's known as the expanded distribution network. Amazon feeds, KDP feeds only Amazon.
Yes. But then Amazon is a huge search engine because Amazon began as a bookstore, correct? Is that right?
Yeah.
It began as a bookstore way before it sold fishing rods and everything else it sells. It was an online bookstore.
That's correct.
And that's when I originally remember of Amazon. So a lot of people still think of that as a great place to find a book.
It is.
Yeah. So is that the last step in your process, helping people understand how to publish through KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing? Is that right? KDP?
KDP.com.
Which is not just Kindle, it's also like physical books.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, it's both. Even though it's called Kindle, it's a bit misleading there.
Yeah,
you think, it's Kindle Direct Publishing, therefore it's only Kindle, but it's also printed books.
Yeah. Once the print book is approved and uploaded, then we go ahead and make the ebook.
Okay. You make the ebook. So you go through the same process for the ebook at the typesetting and
correct.
There's no cover design on ebooks, right?
No, we will use the same resources as we just created for the print book.
Yeah.
So we'll create the ebook and then upload that. The reason we do the reason we do the ebook after the print book is approved is because it's difficult to revise an ebook. So we want to just do that once.
Yes. So then you do the ebook version, and same process with Amazon or KDP, I should say. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then is that the end of the relationship once that's done?
No, we can do all sorts of things for people. We can build a website. We can help you with your audiobook. We can help with marketing and promotion, whatever the author needs. It's all
okay. And what have you seen are the biggest benefits of following this process? Like when you've had clients that have been thinking, I'd really love to publish my book or get my book published or get my book, I guess, written is the first part. What encouragement would you give them? Because I meet a lot of people that when I talk about books or like writing a book, they say, I'd love to write a book. I think I've got a book about this or a book about that. But they seem to delay it indefinitely and they just never do it. Is it a matter of confidence, do you think, that their ideas aren't good enough or the book's not good enough? Is that what it is?
I don't know. I mean, it could be just they don't have the time or the discipline to sit down and do it. But the benefit of using a company like mine, which is not a publishing company, we're a services company, is that the author will keep control of the book. When you work with a publisher, the publisher basically owns your book. And you're then from that point on dependent on them to get sales reports and royalty payments. And at least once a week, I talk to an author who wants to part ways with their publisher, and then they find they can't get the files that they paid the publisher to create. So the industry has become really a big mess, and it's unfortunate because books are wonderful. They're a work of art.
They are. Yeah. Do you consider audiobooks at all in this process, or just the ebooks and the printed the full book?
Oh, no, we can help with the audiobook too. I work with a great producer who has a staff of narrators available, and we can help choose a narrator and do that too.
Okay. Or so if I was thinking of an audiobook, I could narrate it myself, or I could get a professional narrator to narrate it. I could do either.
You could do either. I normally recommend a professional narrator because they just do. They know how to breathe and they're trained and they know how to make the book come to life in a way that most people just can't.
Okay. So you'd recommend, so if I've got my book on Amazon, got it on KDP, Ingram Spark, I've got my ebook out there, the next step would be to say, let's go audiobook. Does it need to be rewritten as an audiobook?
No.
Or no?
No.
So it's exactly the same book.
Mm-hmm. I mean, now some books don't lend themselves to an audiobook, like the book you described, maybe not, right? Because you're taking people through a workshop, basically. So that might be difficult to for them to access the information properly in audio.
Yeah, and it was because I had a client that wanted to buy this was only recently, this was only maybe 6 months ago. I had a client that loved the book, but he wanted it as an audio book because in his view, print books were old school. He wanted, and he said, I want to buy 150 copies of this, but I want to buy it as an audio book, right? And I thought, and he said, can you do that? And of course I said yes, right? Not knowing whether that was possible or not, right? And then I started, I stupidly thought, I'll narrate it because I run the workshop, so I know there's content. But then when I started reading the content, I realized, as you just said, it was written like a workshop, so it needed to be rewritten. So I had to basically rewrite it as an audio book and then record it, but then get that audio produced, if you like, or enhanced and produced, so it sounded more like an audio book and less like me. Right?
See, for everybody has their preferences, right? I love a print book for nonfiction, right? But I'll often read ebooks and listen to audiobooks for narrative text.
Yes. It's interesting. My wife loves ebooks. For everything, she loves ebooks. Her Kindle is like her best friend. Whereas I like hard copy books, even for nonfiction, because I like writing in them and underlining them and headlining them and dog-earing the pages and going back to them again. I've got a bookcase behind me full of books that are all like that, and I go back to them because it's like going down a memory lane. Like some of those books are 20 years old that I've underlined and I've got little notations in them, and that's like my summary of that book. It's like my online summary. Whereas with novels, I don't tend to write. I prefer printed novels as well, but I don't write in them for some reason. I just read them and then usually give them away because I think, well, what am I going to do with a novel? I'm not going to read it again.
Yeah. Well, when ebooks first came out, they predicted the demise of print books, and that hasn't happened.
No, there's something. I'm not a big ebook fan personally. I don't like reading like a book on a screen. I like reading a book. I'm old school. I like a book with pages, and I think that could be because. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you was that my dad was a printer. Like he ran an offset printing business, and from when I was a boy, he would take me down to I'd visit him after work, or I'd be dropped off by my mum, and he'd be like showing me inks and like the particular texture of the ink and the smell of the ink, and he loved paper, like he's like this particular paper and how it felt. I think this guy's crazy, right?
Yeah.
But when you think about print, like proper printers, like proper offset printers, like he was, all those selections are very important. Like picking the ink.
That's right.
Picking everything was very important to him. Like the type of paper he was selecting for the particular job, the type of ink, like how he was setting up the press. That's all an art form all by itself. Correct.
It is. Now, print on demand doesn't give you as many options as an offset book printer. That's the one.
No, it doesn't.
That's the one downside. You can't get any of those fancy finishes or fancy paper.
No, unless you get them printed. Like if you were a successful author, you might get 20,000 printed that you're going to sell, right? But print on demand, and that's why it's a bit more expensive. People think, why is print on demand more? Well, it's because each book is being printed independently, which that's what makes it more expensive. Correct?
Yes, and also because the distribution is built in. Right. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And the great thing about places like Ingram Spark is they're printed locally, correct? I guess it's the same with Amazon. Yeah.
They both have facilities all over the place. Yeah.
All over the world. Like, so if I ordered a book in Krakow, Poland, I'd be getting my book printed in Poland. I wouldn't get it printed in Chicago or Phoenix, of all places, like where you are, and they get sent to Poland. Yeah, it'll be made locally. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So, what advice would you give someone who thinks I've got a book in me, which is most people? I've got a book in me, whether it's Yeah, you go. You go.
There wasn't one of the original gurus in self-publishing was Dan Poynter, and he used to go
Yeah.
around the world saying that nobody should die with a book.
I remember Dan Poynter, but why does that name ring a bell to me?
Yeah, he got me. He
was
actually got me started in the industry. I went to a speech that he was giving, and a couple of weeks later, I got something in the mail, and I thought, "What's this?" And he got me started.
And are you a published author, Michelle?
I have a little book that I offer to people, and
A little book.
just little.
A little book.
88 pages. It's called
Yeah.
Publish Like the Pros.
Published Like the Pros.
And it's just a brief overview of the industry and some of the things that authors should pay attention to. And if you go to our website at 1106design.com, I'll give it to you for free in PDF form.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna put all of your socials and website contact details on the show notes, so if people would like to reach out to you, and I'm sure people could work with you remotely, like if they're in Australia or in Singapore or wherever they might be.
Absolutely.
It doesn't really matter. They're never going to be in Phoenix, Arizona to work with you, right?
No, not at all. We work for people all over the world. We just did a book for a lady in Cyprus.
Cyprus.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm always amazed.
What was her book on? The Lady in Cyprus.
She actually wrote a book. It's about Cyprus. It's called The Island That Everybody Wants.
Oh, that's Cyprus.
A history of Cyprus, basically. But it was illustrated for children.
Oh, okay. So it was more a children's book than an adult's book.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Michelle, I really appreciate your advice.
Thank you.
Giving listeners advice on publishing and self-publishing and independent publishing and the pros and cons and the steps we've got to take. As I mentioned, we'll leave your contact details in the show notes for people that like to reach out to you if they'd like to get that book in them, out of them, if you like, and into the world. But I thank you for being a guest on Growth Tales today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure.